Chapter 8. In the end, I carried Emma as far as the studio. I lowered her to the ground and woke her up. "You'll have to climb the steps yourself." The studio door opened, and Dulce rushed out as if she'd been waiting on us.
"Where have you been? You've been gone for ages."
"We walked to Webster's Cove," I told her. "Emma wanted to find Sissy's house." Emma threw her arms around Dulce and burst into tears.
"We didn't see Sissy anywhere, and I got so tired and hot."
"We stopped at Smoochie's," I told Dulce. "The girl who works there, Erin, didn't know Sissy, but she said her mother knows you and Mom. She used to play with you when she was little." "Janine."
"What was her name?"
"Janine something. I forgot." Most people would have paused to think about the name. Not Dulce. Her response was quick and sharp.
"I don't remember her."
"But she remembers you." Dulce frowned and shook her head.
"Next time you sashay off to Webster's Cove, please let me know."
I wanted to ask if she had a memory problem, but the grumpy look on her face silenced me.
"It's past time for lunch. Emma must be starved."
Dulce loped up the steps, and Emma and I followed, too tired to keep up with her long legs. After we ate, Dulce returned to the studio, and Emma settled down on the couch beside me.
"Will you read this to me?"
Emma held up the Muffets.
"I want to know about Rufus M."
Like most of the things in the cottage, the book was old. The cover was faded, and the pages had a soft, pulpy feel. My grandmother had scrawled her name on the title page, followed by the date June 5th, 1945. Under it, Dulce had written her name in June 2nd, 1977. Mom added her name the next year. It looked as if another name had been scribbled there, but someone had erased it. All that remained were a few faint pencil marks, impossible to read. By the time I finished the first chapter, Emma was fast asleep. I lay on my side next to her, tired from our long walk. A fly buzzed against the window screen. The lake lapped the shore. After resting for a while, I went to my room and put on my bathing suit. Leaving Emma to her nap, I ran down the steps of the lake. Before I waded into the water, I stopped by the studio. Dulce was sitting on a stool, staring at an unfinished painting, another canvas washed with blues and grays and green.
"Where's Emma?"
she asked. "Asleep. Is it okay if I go for a swim?" Dulce hesitated. For a moment, I was afraid she'd say no. Mom would have.
"Promise to stay out of the deep water, and be careful."
She dipped her brush into blue paint.
"Be back in half hour or so."
I leaned against the door for a moment and watched Dulce go to work on the painting. She was soon absorbed in adding daubs of dark blue and blacks. Completely forgotten, I slipped outside and walked down to the lake. The water was so clear I could see my toes and the pebbles on the bottom, as if I were looking through glass. Schools of silver minnows darted in and out of the clumps of grass, turning this way and that in perfect unison, tickling my legs as they swam past. I waded through knee-deep water, watching the minnows. Every now and then I glimpsed bigger fish, trout maybe, but they disappeared before I got a good look at them. Seagulls dipped and circled overhead, and the pine forest behind me rang with the cries of crows. The trees made the air smell like Christmas. I was enjoying myself until I saw Sissy at the end of our stretch of sandy beach. Unaware I was near, she bent over a pile of sand, patiently shaping into a castle with turrets. I watched her for a few moments, glad Emma was safely at home. When Sissy began to dig a moat, I splashed out of the water. "Well, well, where have you been?" She looked up startled. "What's it to you?" "Nothing," I said. "It's not like I missed you or anything." Sissy frowned. Her eyes narrowed against the sun. "Where's Emma?" "Taking a nap." I sat down, scooped up a handful of sand, and watched it trickle slowly through my fingers. "It's boring to sleep." Sissy went on digging her moat as if it was a lot more interesting than I was. She was wearing the same faded bathing suit. One strap slipped off her shoulder, and she pulled it back in place. Emma was pretty tired. I scooped up another handful of sand. "We walked all the way to Webster's Cove and back this morning." "Why did you go there?" "Emma was looking for your house, she thought." Sissy shook her head. "I don't live in Webster's Cove." "Where do you live then?" Sissy pointed in the opposite direction. "That way. The other day you pointed toward the cove." She smiled an odd little smile, more of a smirk, actually, and began to make a road to the castle with beach stones. She placed each one carefully. Maybe I don't like unexpected company. Maybe I don't either, I thought, especially when it's you. Out loud, I asked, "What's your last name?" Sissy smoothed her castle walls, stroking the sand with both hands as if it were a cat. I could see the little knobs of her spine under her skin and the sharp jut of her shoulder blades. She was definitely ignoring me, which annoyed me. Do you have any brothers or sisters? No answer. What's your father do? Still no answer. My dad's a math professor at the university, Sissy shrugged as if she didn't care what my father did. I made a path with pits of broken shells and pebbles. I'm just trying to be friendly. No, you're not. You're being nosy. Her face hidden by her hair, Sissy decorated her castle with bits of driftwood. What could I say? She was right. I wasn't being friendly. I wanted to know more about her. After a while, Sissy brushed her hair to the side and looked at me. Emma says Dulce's an artist. Is she good? I nodded. She's getting ready for a show in Washington, D.C. Lucky her. I've never been there. Sissy frowned and tossed the stone at a seagull. It missed and the bird hopped a few feet farther away. I've never been anywhere. Just here. Boring Sycamore Lake. Boring Webster's Cove. Boring Maine. But Maine's beautiful. People come from all over to see the ocean and the boats and the lighthouses. They must be really stupid. Sissy threw another stone, harder this time. She missed again, but the goal squawked and flew away. I'd give anything to leave here and travel all over the world. Maybe when you grow up. You know what? You're stupid too. I stared at her, but she was too busy building a little driftwood fence around her sick castle to look at me. Why are you so mad all the time? I asked her. What makes you think I'm mad? She stuck a seagull's feather into the top of her castle and sat back to study the effect. How about your mother? Is she an artist too? No. Why doesn't she like the lake? Like Emma said, she's scared of water. I paused. Even though I didn't trust Sissy's sly eyes and mean mouth, she'd lived around here all her life. Maybe she'd heard people talk about the cottage. Unlike Aaron, she wouldn't change the subject to spare my feelings. Sissy stared at me, waiting for me to go on. Taking a deep breath, I said, I think something happened the last summer Mom and Dulce came to the cottage. Something they don't want to talk about. Maybe something... I hesitated and dropped my voice to a whisper. Maybe something bad. You're right, she said. Something bad happened, and lots of people know just what it is. I drew in my breath and let it out slowly. Do you know? Sissy tugged her bathing suit strap into place again and got to her feet. That's for me to know and you to find out, she said with a smirk. I jumped up and faced her. You don't know anything, and neither does anyone else. You're making up stories, that's all. Think what you want. Say if I care. Sissy turned her back on me and ran down the beach toward the cove. I watched her until I couldn't see her anymore. Brat. Did she really know something, or was she lying? With one kick, I demolished her castle and then splashed home through the water, sending the minnows racing for cover. The next time I saw her, I'd tell her to stay away from Emma and me. Emma was perched on the boathouse steps waiting for me, in the studio. In the studio, Dulce had Wagner turned up loud. I could see her through the door, painting another canvas with dark shades of purple and gray. A stormy day at the lake, I guessed. Where have you been? Emma asked. For a walk. Did you see Sissy? I watched a gull land on one of the dock's pilings. No, I lied. I wonder where she is. Emma gazed up and down the shore as if hoping to spot Sissy. Oh, she'll turn up one of these days, I said, sure it was true. No matter how much I wished she'd go away, Sissy would keep coming back. She probably didn't have any other friends who'd want to play with someone like her. She'd better. Next to you, she's my best friend. Emma followed me up to the cottage, looking back every now and then, still hoping. Let's play a game, I said, thinking I might get her mind off Sissy. How about Candyland? Okay, although she didn't sound very enthusiastic. Emma watched me pull the box down from a shelf stacked with checkers, dominoes, Chinese checkers, Clue, Parcheesi, chutes and ladders, everything you could possibly want to play. I laid the board on the floor between us. While Emma picked out 4 green playing pieces, I noticed that Mom and Dulce had written their names in 2 corners of the board. The handwriting was loopy and childish, and I imagined my mom with the crayon in her hand laboriously printing Claire. "What's that say?" Emma pointed to the names. "Dulce and Claire. I guess this was their game." "How about this?" Emma pointed at a scribbled-over place in the 3rd corner. "What's it say?" Under a smear of black crayon, I made out the letters Teresa. "Teresa," I whispered. "It says Teresa." I stared at the board. A little prickle as sharp as a razor raced up my spine and tickled my scalp. Teresa. T for Teresa. The girl torn from the photograph, the girl I dreamed about. Was her name Teresa? Why did someone scribble on her name? Emma asked. "I don't know," I said, "but I'd find out." "Maybe Mommy didn't like her," Emma said. "Maybe not." Suddenly uneasy, I picked up the dice. It was weird how the cottage changed, even when evening shadows gathered in its corners. "Do you want to go first?" We played 3 rounds, but it was hard for me to keep my mind on the silly game. My eyes returned again and again to Teresa's name. Who was she? Why was her name almost hidden by layers of black crayon? Why had she been ripped out of that photograph? I had to find out. At the dinner table, Dulce asked us what we'd done all afternoon. "We played Candyland," Emma said. "I won 2 games, and Allie won 1. She says I'm a champ." She held up her arms and flexed her muscles. Dulce laughed. "You've always been a champ." Emma paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Who was Teresa, Mommy?" "Teresa?" Dulce stared at Emma, her body tense. "I don't know anyone named Teresa. Why?" She quickly got to her feet and began to gather the plates. The knives and forks rattled. The glasses clinked. "She wrote her name on your Candyland game." Emma followed Dulce to the kitchen. "But somebody scribbled all over it with black crayon." "I don't know what you're talking about." Dulce scraped leftovers into the trash, her face hidden. "I'll show you." Emma ran to the living room and came back with a Candyland board. "See? Here's your name and Aunt Claire's name, and right there is Teresa's name." Dulce glanced at the board and shrugged. "Our mom used to buy stuff at church rummage sales. Some girl named Teresa probably owned the game before us, so we wrote our names and scribbled hers out." It was a good explanation, but I didn't quite believe it. Something about that name upset Dulce. She was tense, anxious. "Remember that photo I told you about?" I asked her. "The one where the girl had been torn out? Well, her name started with T, and I was wondering—" "Will you please stop talking about it? How often do I have to tell you? I don't know Teresa. I don't know why her name is on that stupid board game, and I don't know who the girl in the picture was. She could have been named Tilly or Trudy or Tony." Dulce's sharp voice startled both Emma and me. I stared at my aunt, puzzled. Why was she so angry? "Don't be mad, Mommy," Emma begged, close to tears. "I'm not mad." Dulce plunged her hands into the soapy water and began washing the dishes with swift, jerky movements. If she weren't careful, she'd break everything in the sink. I grabbed a dish towel. "Want me to help? Want me to dry?" Keeping her back turned, Dulce shook her head. "I'd rather you read to Emma." "But Mommy," Emma began. "Go with Allie," Dulce said. "I need some time to myself." Emma followed me into the living room and sat beside me, her small face glum. I put my arm around her and drew her so close I could smell the sweet scent of her hair. "Would you like to hear another chapter about the Moffats?" I asked. Emma nodded and snuggled against me. While I read, I thought about my aunt's reaction to Emma's questions. She remembered Teresa. I was sure she did. Why wouldn't she admit it? Chapter 9. The next morning I slept late, probably because I'd tossed and turned most of the night dreaming about Teresa. When I stumbled downstairs, eager for orange juice, I found Emma sitting at the kitchen table with Sissy. Turning her face so only I could see it, she smiled her smirky smile. "Look who's here!" Emma cried, obviously delighted. "Sissy came to play with me." "Whoop-de-doo," I muttered. "Where's Dulce?" In her studio. She's got lots to do today, so we shouldn't bother her. I took my seat at the table. Dulce had already filled a bowl with my favorite cereal. As I added milk, I was aware of Sissy sitting beside me, close enough to watch. I wasn't in the mood to put up with her, not after a bad night's sleep. Ignoring me, Sissy busied herself pushing Cheerios around her bowl with her spoon, sinking them in the milk and watching them pop up against. As far as I could see, she hadn't eaten any of them. I tapped her shoulder to get her attention. It's bad manners to play with food. Even to myself, I sounded like a crabby old lady. So? Sissy shrugged and continued to stir the cereal into a gloppy mess. So if Dulce was nice enough to fix cereal for you, you should eat it. Dulce didn't give me this. Emma did. I told her I wasn't hungry, but she fixed it anyway. I looked at Emma and she nodded. Mommy wasn't here when Sissy came, so I got to be hostess. I hate cereal unless it got lots of sugar on it. With a frown, Sissy pushed her bowl away. Let's go to the lake, Emmy. I still have my jammies on. Get dressed then, slowpoke. Sissy followed us into the living room and flopped on the couch. I'll wait here. Leaving Sissy looking at a magazine, I took Emma to her room and helped her out of her pajamas, and into her favorite yellow bathing suit. Emma ran to the living room to make sure Sissy was still there, and I dashed upstairs and yanked on my bathing suit. When I came down, Sissy was looking at the names written on the Candyland board. The minute she saw me, she shoved it aside. The board fell off the table and onto the floor with a faint thud. Candyland is a baby's game, Sissy told me. I outgrew it a long time ago. Emma likes it, I said. No, I don't. Emma stood in the doorway, frowning as if I'd betrayed her. I'm way too big to play it. You weren't too big to play last night, I reminded her. Well, today I am. Emma flounced past me and smiled at Sissy. Do you just want to swim or build castles? Both. Sissy let Emma take her hand. I followed the two of them outside. At the top of the steps, Sissy looked back at me. You aren't invited. Sorry, but Emma doesn't go anywhere without me. I don't need you to babysit me, Emma protested. She was learning to scowl exactly like Sissy. The nasty expression didn't suit her sweet little face, nor did the sly look she gave Sissy, hoping for her approval. Sissy ran down the steps ahead of Emma and me and stopped at the bottom, almost as if she was afraid to go further. Is your mother in the studio? Emma nodded. She's painting a big picture of the lake, all dark and scary like a storm's coming. She reached for Sissy's hand. Want to see it? Dulce'd love to meet you, I added. Sissy took a quick look through the open door. Dulce stood with her back to us, hard at work on another painting darker than the first two. Lakeview 3, she was calling this one. Hi, Mommy, Emma called. We're going swimming. Sissy drew in her breath sharply and ducked away as if she didn't want to be seen. Not that it mattered. Without turning around, Dulce said, Stay close to shore, Emma. Knee deep, remember? Sissy ran to the end of the dock and posed in a diving position. Her tan skin contrasted her faded bathing suit and her pale hair. Dare me? She called to Emma. Not unless you swim really good, Emma said uncertainly. The water's over your head, I added. I'll do it if you do it, Sissy said to Emma. No. I grabbed the straps of Emma's suit. Emma can't swim. I can so! I held her tighter. You're not allowed to jump off the dock unless your mother's here. Do you do everything your mommy says? Sissy asked Emma. Are you a little goody-goody girl? Emma looked confused. She has rules, I told Sissy, like everyone. Not me, said Sissy. I don't have any rules at all. I do whatever I want. With that, she jumped off the dock and hit the water with a big splash. She popped back up almost at once, laughing and spluttering. Emma's a baby. She sucks her thumb and poops her pants and drinks from a bottle. Emma began to cry. I'm not a baby. I'm almost 5 years old. I can do whatever I want to. With a sudden twist, Emma broke away from me and ran to the edge of the dock. Before I could stop her, she leapt into the lake. 1 second she was beside me, the next she was gone. I stared in the water in disbelief, too surprised to move. In a few seconds, Emma's head emerged, eyes shut, mouth open, gasping for breath. Before she could speak again, I was in the lake beside her, holding her the way the lifeguard had taught me in swimming class. Emma clung to me but turned her head to shout at Sissy.
See, I'm not a baby.
Sissy paddled closer. Her hair floated on the water like pale yellow seaweed. I bet you wouldn't jump if Allie wasn't here. I'll always be here, I told Sissy. To Emma, I said. If you do that again, I'll tell your mother.
Tattletale, tattletale, Sissy taunted. Nobody likes tattletales. I'll jump again if I want,
Emma said, but she made no effort to break away from me. I had a feeling she'd scared herself. The water was deep, and she couldn't do much more than dog paddle a few feet. On the sand, the three of us built castles. Neither Emma nor Sissy said a word to me. They sat close together, their heads almost touching, whispering and giggling. It's rude to whisper, I told Emma. Sissy smirked. So, nobody invited you to play with us. Emma carefully duplicated Sissy's smirk.
Why don't you go home? Sissy can be my babysitter.
Two's company, three's a crowd, Sissy added. Don't you know that yet? If anyone should go home, you should. I wanted to slap Sissy's nasty little face, but I knew that would only make things worse. Just ignore Allie, Sissy told Emma. We don't like her, and we don't care what she says or what she does. She's mean.
Meanie,
Emma said.
Allie's a big fat meanie.
Allie's so mean, hell wouldn't want her. Sissy's eyes gleamed with malice. Emma stared at her new friend, shocked, I think by the word hell. Sissy smiled and bent over her castle, already bigger than the one she built yesterday. It's not bad to say hell, she told Emma. It's in the Bible. Emma glanced at me to see what I thought about this. I shook my head, but Sissy pulled Emma close and began whispering in her ear. Emma looked surprised. Then she giggled and whispered something in Sissy's ear that made her laugh. I pulled Emma away. What are you telling her? I asked Sissy. Nothing. Sissy pressed her hands over her mouth and laughed.
Nothing.
Emma covered her mouth and laughed too. She sounded just like Sissy. I wanted to get up and leave, but I couldn't abandon Emma. Instead, I moved a few feet away and watched the two of them. Their castles grew bigger and more elaborate. Everything Sissy did to hers, Emma copied. It was pathetic. It's nearly lunchtime, I told Emma. Why don't we go back to the studio and get your mom?
Do you want to eat lunch with me?
Emma asked Sissy. She shook her head. It's almost time for me to go home. I thought you didn't have any rules, I said. I thought you could do whatever you want. Sissy gave me a long, cold look. Maybe I want to go home. But you don't have to go, Emma persisted. My mommy's very nice. She fixes good peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Sissy made a face. I hate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
I hate them too,
Emma put in quickly.
Mommy can fix something else for us. Tuna salad, maybe.
I happen to know Emma despised tuna salad, but I didn't say anything. What was the use? She probably thought it sounded more grown up than peanut butter and jelly. I don't want to eat at your house, Sissy looked at me. Not with Allie there.
Maybe we could have a picnic, just you and me, Emma said. Outside on the deck.
Some other time, Sissy stood up and looked down at the castles. They're pretty enough for a mermaid to live in, she said. Do you like mermaids, Em?
I saw the Little Mermaid 10, 12, a dozen times. It's my favorite movie.
Sissy tossed her head to get her hair out of her eyes. 12 is the same as a dozen, dummy.
I'm not a dummy,
Emma said. With a sudden jerk of her foot, Sissy kicked Emma's castle down.
You ruined my castle,
Emma wailed.
Now a mermaid can't live in it.
Hey! With a couple of kicks, I leveled Sissy's castle. There! How do you like that? I don't care, Sissy laughed. I can build another one, better than that, and so can Emma. We have all summer to build castles for mermaids. She laughed louder. After a moment's hesitation, Emma joined in. Shouting with laughter, they held hands and spun around and round in circles, until they staggered and sprawled on the sand, still laughing. I stared at them, slightly worried, maybe even scared of their behavior. What's so funny? Everything, Sissy giggled. The whole stupid world is funny.
Allie's funny,
Emma laughed shrilly.
Mommy's funny, you're funny, I'm funny. The lake's funny, the seagulls are funny, the...
Suddenly, Sissy stopped laughing. Her face turned mean. "Shut up," she shouted at Emma. "You aren't funny. You're stupid, and you're a copycat."
I'm not a copycat.
Obviously bewildered by Sissy's mood change, Emma began to cry.
"Baby, baby, copycat,"
Sissy chanted.
"Sat on a tack and ate a rat."
Without looking back, she ran toward the cove, still chanting. Emma threw herself against me and pounded me with her fist.
"Look what you did! You made Sissy mad! Why can't you leave us alone?"
I grabbed Emma's shoulders and held her away from me. Little as she was, her punches hurt. "I didn't do anything to that brat. She's a troublemaker. She's mean to you. She's..."
"Don't you talk like that! Sissy's my friend!"
"Some friend," I muttered. "Calling you a baby, daring you to jump off the dock, knocking your castle down? Why do you want to be friends with a girl like that?"
"You're just mad because she likes me, not you."
"Don't be silly. I don't like her. Why should I care that she doesn't like me?"
"Sissy says you're jealous. That's why you don't like her. That's why you're not nice to her. You want me all to yourself,"
Emma muttered. I stared at her amazed. "How can you believe that?"
"'Cause it's true,"
Emma shouted.
"Sissy doesn't lie."
With that, she ran away from me, surprised by the speed of her skinny little legs. I chased her. What would Dulce think if Emma came home crying? By the time I caught up with her, it was too late. She'd flung herself into her mother's arms.
"I hate Allie,"
she sobbed.
"Make her go home. I don't want a babysitter."
Dulce looked at me, perplexed by Emma's words. "What's going on?" "I'll tell you later." Without waiting for my aunt or my cousin, I trudged up the steps toward the cottage. If Dulce wanted to send me home, fine.